City of Romulus Board of Zoning Appeals, regular meeting for Wednesday, August the 2nd, 2023. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Very good. We'll start with a roll call for the members. Mr. Lloyd?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Frederick?
Here.
Mr. Morris?
Here.
Chandler is present, so we have full board. Item 3 is approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Frederick, supported by Mr. Morris, to approve the meeting agenda. We'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. The agenda for this evening has been approved. Number 4 on our agenda is approval of minutes for the Board of Zoning Appeals regular meeting held on May 3rd, 2023.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Frederick, supported by Mr. Jones, to approve the minutes of that meeting held on May 3rd. Take a roll call vote. Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Chandler, chair votes yes. Those minutes have been approved. Moving on to item 5 under petitions. The first one is a temporary request for that 2023-003 for deranged haunted attraction. That's a location at 35560 Goddard Road. The DP number is 80-068-01-0027-002. And their request is for a temporary use approval in accordance with section 22.03E for temporary uses in buildings of the zoning ordinance for an outdoor haunted attraction with a walking trail and temporary structure from 9/16/23 through 11/1/23. And the project is a haunting attraction. Would the petitioner come forward and tell us about and welcome back. Good to see you again.
Good to see you guys as well. My name is Mike Feeney. I'm once again proposing the usage of 35560 Goddard Road for deranged haunted attraction. As stated, the dates this season we're planning on are starting Saturday, September 16th and running up and through Halloween, finished by November 1st. In the past, we've also run on Friday, September 15th with the Parade of Lights, but we have decided against that just due to traffic concerns, and we love being involved in the community event, and it's a little difficult to get back to our property in time to open the show on time, so we don't plan on opening that night this year. We are a family-friendly attraction, and we're open weekends with ranging times between 8 and 11:30 p.m. In September's, we're open Fridays and Saturdays, and in October, we open Sundays as well. There are a few weeknights as well this season that we plan on opening. We plan on opening Wednesday, October 27th for a kids trick-or-treat night, which is a scare-free event. We kind of did a trial run with that last year that was rather successful. Kind of took the scares out of the attraction while welcoming younger guests to experience the lights and a Halloween experience. So we plan on doing that on Wednesday, October 27th, and we also plan on opening Monday, October 30th, the day before Halloween, as well as Halloween itself, which falls on a Tuesday this year. When guests arrive onto the property, they're greeted by a parking attendant. We have 43 parking spots on site, as well as 3 barrier-free spots. Our website states for our guests, if they need usage of those barrier-free spots, to notify a parking attendant. Once the guests are there, they're instructed to the building, where they will be purchasing their tickets, or they'll be checking in if they had purchased online tickets. From that point, we'll be implementing a virtual queue line, which is something we've done since 2020, where the guests will enter a text message system, so then they will be able to wait in the comfort of their cars and then receive a text when it's time to enter the attraction. When the guests step up to the attraction and it is their time to enter, the rules will be gone over with the guests, making sure that the guests know that there's no smoking or open flames allowed in the attraction or in the forest, as well as no eating or drinking or no weapons. The groups are going to be groups of 6 or less, as we find that's not only the best optimal experience for safety, and so our actors and staff can maintain a safe environment, but also for the experience for the customers. Throughout our attraction, we have 15 to 20 actors on any given night, and that's through the woods as well as some small structures. And those actors are there to ensure safety as well as scare the patrons as they go through. All the actors are equipped with cell phones in case of an immediate emergency, and they also have walkie-talkies so they can contact the front office as well as our staff members if a lesser emergency occurs. We also have 10 fire extinguishers located throughout the trail and throughout the building on site. The building on site is not for public use. It is our actor area, and that is staffed with fire extinguishers as well, and where we distribute tickets from. And at this time, I would like to open it up to any questions. Thank you guys again for your time.
All right, thank you. Close that portion and announce that notices of this public hearing have been sent out. The first-class mail and an affidavit of that is on file. And at this time, if there's anybody in the audience who would care to speak on this, let us know, and you can come to the podium and ask your questions. If not, we'll open it up to the board members for questions and comments. I guess I can start. It's been, go ahead, Mr. Morris.
I'm just trying to figure if there was something he left out
Oh, no.
from last year and the year before that, whatever. But no, sounds good to me.
Okay, thank you.
There were quite a few items here, with conditional items that were by the planning department. Have you been through those?
Yeah.
I'll read them off. There's about 9 of them in this. The first one is submittal of all required information to the building department, fire department, police department for review prior to issuance of any temporary building and sign permits. Number 2 is approval of the fire safety and evacuation plan by the fire and police departments. Number 3 is approval of the traffic control plan, including the parking lot layout and associated signage by the police departments. Item 4, inspections of the temporary structure and site as determined needed by the building, fire, and police departments. 5, determination of the maximum occupant load and necessary staffing levels by the fire department. Item 6, sound from the attraction shall not be audible beyond the property line. 7, light levels must be in compliance with ordinance requirements, and all lighting must be directed down and away from the street and adjacent properties. A business registration, number 8 is a business registration from the clerk's office, and a temporary certificate of occupancy are required. 9, the attraction and all associated structures must be completely removed by November 1st, 2023. And I'm sure you read those, and
Yes, sir.
I announced it so everybody would know what's going on. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Mays? No? If not, I guess we can start this with a motion.
Mr. Chair, go ahead. Good.
Mr. Lloyd?
Sure. I guess my only question or comment is that I would make a motion assuming that all the conditions are met, right? So we want to make sure we are aligned.
Are you making a motion?
Sure.
Oh.
Motion to approve deranged haunted attraction,
It's subject to those conditions.
subject to the conditions.
Support.
We have a motion by Mr. Lloyd, supported by Mr. Morris, to approve the variance or the request for the temporary use approval in accordance with the section 22-03. And according to the conditions by the planning department. At this point, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Good luck with your
Thank you.
project.
Thank you, appreciate your guys' time.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is BZA-2023-013 for Christopher Leduc. The location is 13450 Cogswell, DP number 80-118-01-0018-000. And the request is a variance from section 3.04 3B for accessory buildings of the zoning ordinance to allow a pole barn that exceeds the allowed total square footage of accessory buildings up to 1,500 square feet. That's what is allowed, and 2,283 square feet is requested. The project is construction of a 1,500 square foot pole barn. Is Mr. Leduc in the audience? Yes. Ready to come to the podium and tell us a little more about your project and your request?
I would, I would like to leave my garage up just for my daily driver. And then I have a couple other vehicles I'd like to store in the barn, plus a pontoon boat and such.
Okay, well, moving on then. Okay, at this point in time, you have anything else to say about that?
I don't think so.
Okay. Notices of the public hearing have been sent out, and we have an affidavit on file of that mailing. At this point, we'll close this portion and open it up for anybody that would care to ask questions or speak about this request. If not, we'll open it up for the board members for questions, comments.
Through the chair, I was just going to say, I know he's proposing to build a 1,500 square foot pole barn. He has a 400 square foot garage, and there's a few sheds on the property that are going to be coming down. And he just exceeds the 1,500 for that square footage of his lot. We've done a review on it. He meets everything other than that square footage, and it allows him to store his vehicles inside and actually will help keep the property clean as well.
Oh, that was one of my questions. Those vehicles that are behind your barn, are those all going to be stored in the barn?
Yes,
How many vehicles do you have?
just 4.
Anything else you're going to put in there?
But boats and like my lawn tools and stuff, lawn tractor. I do have another tractor that I use for plowing the driveway. That's going to be in there. Like,
Mr. Frederick?
Well, just through the chair, a clarification on the paperwork here. It says, request is for a 1,500 square foot pole barn, but 2,283 is requested.
Yes, so the 2283 was counting all the sheds that we had on his property.
That's what I was thinking. I just wanted to.
Yes, so with them, with multiple of them coming down, it'll actually be a little bit less than that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It makes sense. Makes sense. So that's my only concern or question. And
Are you going to build the barn yourself, or are you going to have it built?
I'm going to have it built.
I've got a 1,500 square foot pole barn, and they fill up quick. Especially if you got family, a lot of family.
build 2 of them.
If no other questions or comments,
Make a motion.
Mr. Frederick?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion.
All right.
All right, through the chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve BZA 2023-013 Christopher Leduc, 13450 Cogswell, DP 80-118-01-0018-000 for construction of a 1,500 square foot pole barn.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Frederick, supported by Mr. Lloyd, to approve the variance request for that accessory building at 13450 Cogswell, to allow a 1,500 square foot pole barn. I take a roll call vote. Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Your request has been approved. Good luck with your barn.
Thank you,
Enjoy your project.
thank you.
Next item on the agenda, excuse me, is BZA 2023-008, a Romulus Distribution Center, Ashley Capital, and it's for building height. The location is 36711 Ecorse Road, and the variance request, or one of them, is for a variance from section 8.04A for area, height, and placement requirements of the zoning ordinance to increase the height of two buildings from the allow of 35 feet to 47 feet. The project is construction of two speculative light industrial cross-dock buildings totaling 470,000 square feet and 547,000 square feet. Would the petitioner come forward and tell us about this project?
Sure. Good evening. Kyle Morton from Ashley Capital. We put together a few slides to talk about the overall project. I know this has been in front of Planning Commission and the Brownfield Board and City Council previously, so just wanted to bring this board up to speed exactly what we've done and what specifically we're asking for. There are three items on the agenda that all pertain to this project. Two are height variance related, and the third is a use variance. So they kind of all tie in together, so they'll be in this presentation, and we'll walk through that. So who is Ashley Capital? We're based in Canton over on Haggerty Road, just north of Michigan. We've been in Metro Detroit for over 30 years. Starting, I guess our second project was the back half of the GM facility on Van Born Road, the old Stinson Aircraft building, and the two buildings we built in front of it. We have another project that's at Ecorse in Haggerty in Van Buren Township, right on the west side of 275. So we really specialize in these speculative buildings on what we call brownfield sites, so sites that have known contamination. We've gone through the TIF process, both locally and through Eagle in the state on this site already. So just making sure we're talking about the correct area. The property boundary in red is currently everything that we own. Effectively, we bought a majority of the property from the city back in 2020, and then we had 5 separate private party transactions involving a few houses that front Ecorse Road, as well as the pallet operation that sits behind the LKQ building, and a vacant field. So I find this just helpful for context. Over half the property is encumbered by a state conservation easement, which is shaded in yellow here. That's land we can't disturb. We're not talking about developing, no trees are being cut down. There were 2 landfills on the east side of the property. We call them the north and south landfill for easy reference. And I just wanted to note that this project doesn't involve any access for vehicles to Wick Road to the south. Everything goes north to Ecorse Road. So just quick photos that have come in some of the previous presentations. So this is what the area looked like in the mid-'60s. So everything was clear cut, and there was active landfill ongoing. So none of this was regulated by the state at this point, so it all is considered an unlicensed landfill. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with a lot of the automotive-related dumping that went on back here. That middle photo is just all the soil and geotechnical borings we've done. We've kind of made Swiss cheese of the site. So So project summary, what exactly is Romulus Distribution Center? So currently, we're really using only 82 acres of the 286-acre site. The two buildings, as mentioned, are 470,000 feet and 547,000 feet. We have, the majority of the property is zoned M1. I've dropped a red line on this slide that really shows the difference between where the industrial zoning switches to a residential zoning. Just to clarify, we've been asked a few times, there are no railroad spurs servicing this project, so it's just the existing rail lines that are there, and they won't be a part of our project. So I've touched upon a few of these, but we own all the land to date. We got through Planning Commission in June for our special land use, as well as our site plan approval, and we had a few waivers that were granted. We've spent the better part of the 3 years since we've owned this to working with the state and local brownfield board, with the city, getting a tax increment financing plan in place and making sure we can safely redevelop this. So our biggest challenge outside of the environmental and geotechnical stuff from the landfill conditions really relate to the site's location and kind of a hodgepodge of zoning and conservation easements that have been created over the years. We originally came in with a concept plan to the city, which we've significantly downsized. We originally had a third building. The project originally went further south, closer to Wick Road. Working with the city staff and planners, we reduced the scope of the project, we removed the third building, and we increased the setbacks substantially relative to what both the zoning ordinance requires and what special land use requires, which is roughly 150% higher. So this is a landscape version of the plan. Both buildings, E-course on page left and WIC on page right. And this just measures out some distances. So from the face of the building to the closest house on the east, we're over 1,300 feet. We also have a 4-foot berm with two rows of evergreens, so new trees that are planted for additional screening. And on the south end of the project, we're about 1,000 feet from the building to the closest structure, and I believe that's about 600 feet to the residential zoning lot line. I make one other point on the detention basin, which will come up on the use variance. We show it in blue just to indicate it's a detention basin, but it's a dry detention basin, so it's not intended to have standing water in it. All right, so these are the three requests are outlined here. We have a building height variance request for 47 feet above the standard 35 as allowed under the zoning ordinance. The second is for light pole height for 25 feet. The zoning ordinance requires it to be 14 feet. Light poles be 14 feet if we're within 300 feet of residential. And the use variance is our detention pond. That dry detention pond actually sits in a residentially zoned piece of property, not in an industrial zone. So just to talk about the first one, which is the height variance. So the exterior height of the building really is a function of the interior use and interior cubic storage. I know you've probably been familiar with this with the North Point project, as well as some of the other warehouse projects that have moved forward. The market nationally has moved to what we refer to as 36-foot internal clear height, and we're seeing now 40-foot internal clear height. So when you take that 36, you have to add the roof steel and then also the pitch in the roof at the high point to get to what is the maximum building height for us for 47 feet. So at 35 feet, we can't get a leasable and marketable building. The clear heights are too low. I put one graphic that kind of just shows typical pallet stacking and just the difference in cubic volume. So as construction costs have gone up, it's important to get additional cubic volume when you can't go further out on the site. Kind of why you see a lot of food grade buildings and refrigerated buildings are significantly higher in the 50 or 60 foot range. So the light pole height variance, we were asking for 25 feet opposed to the 14 feet. If this project had been next to a industrial zone piece of property, 25 feet is what the ordinance allows. Since we are within 300 feet of a residentially zoned piece of property, no matter where our setbacks are, it's triggered that we are knocked down to 14 feet. We substantially moved our setbacks and added landscaping and berming to compensate for this additional height, both in the lights and the building height, knowing that we'd have to be here. If we had that third building and we were closer south and we were further east, we know we would have a hard case on that. And the last one is the detention basin. As I mentioned, it's a dry detention basin. This is both due to proximity to the airport, but we also pushed for this because we were both working with some of the neighbors and the school board. They were concerned due to mosquito control with the school next door. Apparently that's been a big problem, so we wanted to make sure we were cognizant of that. We originally intended on having the detention pond in that area that's circled in yellow on the plan. Unfortunately, it's a vacant farm field right now. It's considered regulated wetlands to the state, so they asked us to find another location. Everything else on the site is a landfill. This location in itself is a landfill, was former landfill, but it's former landfill that is zoned residential. So it's not going to be built into a house, but it's kind of dead space in the middle of the site. It happens to be at a low point rather than a high point of the landfill, so it makes it easier. And through working with the state, we don't need to put a specific liner in there because we're able to excavate low enough and put it in good clay soil. So, and the last point was that the trees, all the tree cover between the detention basin and the school property, kind of everything else in the conservation easement stay. Just the last few things were, I don't think they're in this slide deck. We had a few of those view shed photos, but I'm not sure they made it in the slide deck. So I'll just leave it with the landscape rendering and I'll end it there.
Okay, thank you. Notifications have been sent out via first class mail, and we have an affidavit of that on file. And at this point in time, we'll close that portion and open it up to the public for any questions or comments on this project.
I live on Cogswell, and I believe that most of the residents that live here in this area...
Excuse me, try and speak directly into the mic, please.
Most of the residents...
And give us,
Address for the record.
My address is 8855 Cogswell. Most of the
would you
residents...
give us your name?
My name is Coralie Gellermino.
Okay.
I've lived in a home that I built nearly 30 years ago. My husband's family has lived on this property, a little over 2 acres of land, for nearly 60 years. It was a dirt road back then. Most of the residents that live here in this area of Romulus will tell you they moved here because it's away from commercial and businesses. They are mostly on the main streets. We are rural, maybe even a little country. Our schools on Wick Road have a few scattered homes, usually with a couple acres of land, and ditches, no streetlights. Most of us have put extra miles on our vehicles getting back and forth to work to live in this area. This is not just about the land boundaries. This is about our public schools. Wick Elementary is 0.2 of a mile down Wick Road. Romulus Middle School is less than 1/2 a mile down Wick Road. And Romulus High School is less than a mile from this proposed project. We have voted in millage bonds for the last 30 years that I have been here, paid extra money to go to our students. And I think that we should be taking in consideration the parents of these students. It's not just about the boundary lines here. I don't know if this is the place to talk about the fact that these schools are involved and you're changing the atmosphere of the schools by putting nearly a mile-long monster, 4 stories high, right outside their windows. This should go in front of the voters of Romulus that are paying for the education of their children. I don't like the idea. I don't think it should happen. Thank you.
Somebody else want to speak on this?
My name is Jerry Shout, and I live at 36739 Wick Road, which is right across the street from this monstrosity that they are proposing. We sat here during the last meeting with the vultures of Ashley Capital, who tried to justify the building of 2 more industrial warehouse structures that total over 1 million square feet. We established that none, not one of them, live in Romulus. We also established the fact that none, not one of them, would want this in their backyard, or in our case, our front yard. If you drive down to the northwest corner of Vining and Wick, there are currently 6 to 7 buildings under construction. Most of them are for lease, which means that they are vacant for those of you who don't understand. The northeast corner and the southeast corner have been sold to them for more industrial development. How long will Ashley not have to pay full taxes? And what makes you think that once they do, they will not just move out and leave these as, again, vacant, now dilapidated structures in our front yard? You don't have to go far. Look around the airport. How many empty buildings are there? But now, I'll get to the reason why I'm standing before you today. The lies that we were told at the last meeting. They originally said that they were not going to build a retention pond. Now they were requesting a 5.7 acre retention pond. Didn't know until I got here tonight that they're saying it's dry, but who knows? They might come back with another variance request asking for now it to be wet. They want to increase the structure to 35, originally they said the structure would only be 35 feet high. Now they want to increase that to 47 feet high. And that is an additional 12 feet. They said the lighting would only be 14 feet high. Now they're asking us to increase it by 25 feet, which is another 11 feet. They told us that they didn't want to come out onto Wick Road. When are they going to suggest a variance for that? We've already got tractor trailers running up and down our road at excessive speeds, okay? Another question I would like to have answered is, how many of the taxpayers did you notify? 6? 7? I mean, you say you only have to notify within so many feet. This is bigger than a couple of us. This is Romulus. And Cora's right. The reason my husband and I chose to buy a home here was because of where it was, how it was beautiful. Now it's a nightmare. Anyways, the committee's lack of concern and commitment to its citizens is concerning. How many other properties surrounding residential areas are you planning on selling? How far did that money you got go? You're planning on destroying our property values. Turning our neighborhoods into an industrial zone will be the death of this area. Don't believe me? Go down to Detroit's industrial district and see what you find. One last question. Have any of y'all ever heard the saying, you don't poop where you eat? My guess is no, since that's exactly what you're doing to us. All I can say is shame on you for selling out your city and the citizens of it to these people. And I hope you lose as much sleep at night as I have. I can only hope that we can escape from this cesspool that you're creating in time. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Teresa Picorni, and I live at 9429 Cogswell Street. And I am just curious how many truck bays there's actually going to be in these facilities, and how often is there going to be parking where there's going to be semi-truck trailers running all night long? It just interrupts the whole neighborhood. It interrupts the children. They're going to be distracted by all the noise and the entertainment they get looking out the windows. As most of you are boys, so you would know as little boys what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's a big concern for me. As I said, I also moved to my neighborhood because it was a country setting where I can still get to Myers or Walmart or wherever without driving an hour away. But now it's really got me thinking that I possibly want to sell my house and move. And so do a lot of my other neighbors. I got 3 cards in the mail today on my street alone of homes that have open houses this week between Ecorse and Tyler. That's a lot of homes. Plus, there's been other homes that went for sale just in the past year, 3 or 4 of them. People don't want to live in that kind of neighborhood. That's all I got to say.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Olette-Lay, and my address is 6503 Merriman Road. I live in Romulus. I'm a resident there of over 30 years, or here of over 30 years. I'm concerned about this. My daughter just purchased a home on Tyler Road in June or July. She has twin toddlers who will be growing up in 1 block away from this area, right down the street from the middle school. Eventually they'll go to that school. My other daughter lives by St. Aloysius. She has a newborn. They will be inhaling any pollution through ventilation system for decades. Also, the children that attend that school, or both of those schools, will probably be inhaling any pollution from that environment. And then there's noise pollution, as was brought up. There could be noise pollution. I don't know how you're going to control that, what kind of ceiling you put on it, etc. And what could this possibly evolve into? Maybe it'll start out as a truck terminal, which I would say definitely increases the pollution in the area. And I did have another point, I don't recall what it was. Anyways, I guess that's enough for starters. This is my first meeting on this. I just recently, a couple weeks ago, found out about this. And like I said, my daughter just purchased a house in July, and she had no knowledge of this, and she would not have bought if we thought this was a very good chance of coming to fruition. I don't know who's responsible at that point and what she can do now. I guess she's a little screwed if this goes through. All right, well, thanks for listening to my concerns. And I do agree, let the record show, with Corley on all her comments.
I forgot to say, I've got about 90 to 100 signatures from people out of the area, subdivisions off of Cogswell. They might not be 300 feet from the property, but I'm going to turn them in to the clerk tomorrow after I get copies of them. Again, this is bigger than property boundaries. This is, people bought houses in Romulus because the education is talked about in many places. I've heard about Wick School down in Family Court in Detroit. I don't think that's going to be continuing if Ashley Capital is allowed to build a warehouse, because that's going to deter people from buying that has a commercial building right next to these community schools. This is huge. But I've already voiced my opinion, and I'm going to bring, after getting copies, I'm going to bring these signatures down to the City Hall. I don't know if that's going to make a difference or not.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Phillips, and I'm at 38200 Wick Road. I am originally from Detroit, but I decided to move to Romulus 14 years ago for a lot of the points that they brought up, the peace, the land, the beauty, the community. I even talked my grandmother into moving to Romulus. She's been here a little over a year from Detroit, and that was the big attraction for her. A lot of what we're seeing now is just a lot more noise, a lot less community and residential togetherness because we have so much traffic now. I used to never hear a police or ambulance come down the street. Now I'm hearing them multiple times a day because the traffic has been rerouted. And I just feel if we keep adding more industrial buildings to the area, as they said, people are going to move away. There are plenty other spaces where they can build. There's a lot of land for lease, and I just think by the schools and by the residents should not be accepted. Thank you.
How you doing? My name is William Brewer, 39164 Clock Tower Drive. I stay in the Commons. And I do echo the sentiment of most of these residents here. We moved here back in 2011 because of the peace, the community, and, you know, frankly, just the scenery and the school systems. I learned about this from a young lady maybe 2 weeks ago, and I'm frankly concerned about it because we have a farm behind us. So the question now becomes, when does it stop, right? I mean, when you let industrial take over, you drive out the taxpayer, right? So are they going to flip the bill for those tax losses? So these are things that we need to keep in mind when we, you know, allow these different people to come in with these industrial ideas, because it really does disrupt the family values and things that we try to do. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Franklin Shout. I live at 36739 Wick Road, Romulus, Michigan, right across the street from this. These lights going higher up in the air, it's going to be really an inconvenience. You know, it's going to light up the whole area. That's really not why I'm here. It's, yeehaw, don't we just love the smell of diesel fuel? We got a cross dock going there. You know, I've heard that it's not going to be much more noise, it's not going to be much more pollution, but I drove a truck across country for 13 years for Swift. I drove to just about every cross dock around. Nothing but trucks, noise. They say trucks won't stay there overnight, but it happens when you're getting unloaded. You're going to be there all night, and the truck driver, when it's cold, is going to have that motor running. When it's hot, he's going to have that motor running. We're going to listen to that all night long. Kids in the neighborhood, kids are curious. We all know that, huh? I was a kid once, I was curious. If there was something I shouldn't be into, I was into it. Kids are going to get hurt over there. It's industrial, light industrial, and you know, when it comes to trucks, those are heavy things. I know, I drove them. There's nothing light on them. Every part on them could hurt a kid and kill a kid. You know, this is what it's about. It's about the, you know, the community. You're destroying it. You know, I'm sorry, Ashley Capital, you guys want to build, there's plenty of other places around Detroit that's wide open, something just begging to be built on. But you want to throw this in our backyard. I mean, I asked last time I was here if any of them lived on Wick, and nobody does. None of them even live in Romulus. Do any of you live on Wick? Any of you are gonna suffer the consequences of this. The retention pond's gonna be dry. The reason we have concerns about the mosquitoes is because that area over there, when it's low, it gets wet and it stays wet for a while. Put a pond in, where's water gonna go? They already just said that's the lower area. I did roofs for a few minutes too in my lifetime. Water rolls downhill. Mosquito pond. I don't care how you look at it. I'm getting sick of feeding the mosquitoes. Now we're gonna breed more. What they said about houses selling, there's 2 of them right there just got in the mail today. 2 more of them right on Cogswell for sale. People are leaving because of this. Our house is going up for sale. We already purchased property elsewhere. We came here because we thought it was community. We didn't think we were gonna have a cross dock in our front yard or our neighbor's backyard. We came here because it was peaceful. There were woods, there were animals, deer. Deer that are over there. Where are they gonna go? Out on the road, get hit by cars. Don't seem like as human beings we have much concern for this when we start allowing, just tear down everything when there's, there's dilapidated buildings everywhere. It could have been bought and tore down. Yeah, thank you.
Jim Garrison, 7245 Oscar Street. I live 1,300 feet to the east of this building. I expressed all my concerns last time I was here. As far as the lighting and the height of the building, I mean, I think we're probably at the point where we're past all this and you guys are just listening to us complain. But for us, the drainage is already a major issue. We discussed the last meeting. We did a loop around to Wick Elementary. This isn't even put up yet, and that entire drive was flooded the other day. And now you're gonna add, with the parking spaces, I don't know what, I mean, that's gotta be 1.5 million square feet of concrete. House values, you know, you guys are putting me in a position where if I sell my house, I'm selling it to somebody to regret the purchase, or I stay in it long enough for the value to reduce. Somebody that's not here last time told me that it should increase my house value, which is silly. I mean, it was even documented, and I don't know what position, I don't know what you guys expect us as neighbors to this to do. I mean, I'm gonna hear it, you know, through the woods. I already hear the railroad tracks like they're next to my house. Now you're putting a 1 million square feet building. I mean, that's insane. I guess I just don't know where the line is. If it's gonna be an industrial area, then buy out everybody around it and let us move on our own. Don't expect us to live there and deal with it. You know, I understand that the county road, you know, that has a lot to do with the drainage, but if the drainage is already backed up, if there's already an issue with drainage, you're eliminating more drainage, you're raising that, I'm assuming that the ground is gonna be raised or elevated, which is gonna then increase the water buildup. You're building a pond in next to it. I guess I don't understand how all of it lays out. I mean, I'm not, you know, I haven't spent 3 years trying to design this and plan it, but to me, it seems like the people that live around it haven't been considered at all. And definitely oppose it. You know, like I said, I feel like this is a formality at this point when we're getting to the lighting and the height of the building. But the rest of it, I think, is garbage. That's what I got. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Virginia Williams. I've been in Romulus now when Romulus was still a township. And the reason I came and I stayed in Romulus because Romulus was on the rise. It was growing. But it haven't grown for the residents. Industrial, and it's nothing against the company, but industrial is not what the residents in need of. And especially when you put it in a residential area, you have a duty to not only just listen to the businesses that want to come here and drop a few tax dollars, but consider the residents. We already don't have much at all, okay? And so Ashland Capital is not going to bring any value to our lifestyles. They're here as a business to make money. It's not going to benefit the residents. And in America Day, I'm talking about worldwide, we're not paying attention to those that really matter. It's not about the businesses. It's about the well-being, the health, and the safety of the residents. I'm not for sure of what this board played in, but planning, city council had a big part in letting Amazon, that humongous building, be put right in the middle of a residential area. When are we going to stop that? Romulus has too much vacant land. If I'm not mistaken, Romulus is one of the only cities that still have undeveloped land. Why next to a school, 2 schools? Why next to residential communities? I live off of E-Course. There's enough truck traffic that comes down E-Course. You got the trains, you got the planes, and now you got the trucks, and you're adding more. You're adding more. And I heard the young man say it was going to be a dry pond. Well, they said that off of Inkster Road, a building they put in between 2 residential homes. And that pond hasn't been dry since they finished it. Who goes back and check to make sure they are keeping their word? Because the residents come back and complain, saying this, that, and the other is happening. Look, you have to consider, it's not about companies coming from other states looking at good land for them to build a building and then hope that somebody would lease it. Consider the residents. We're paying ridiculous taxes, ridiculous water bills, and what are we getting in return? What the boards need to do, every board, even including the one I'm sitting on, is listen to the residents, and let's focus more on what the residents need. Family dining, a grocery store, sidewalks, not commercial. No, and I'm serious. I'm serious. And I haven't been to a council meeting because I had family issues, death in the family, back to back. But when a resident called me to tell me what was taking place, you have to listen to the residents. That's your job, to sit up there and listen to the residents. It's not about how much money not one company can bring to the city, because regardless of all the money, Kroger's and Amazon and General Motors, what have it done for us? Because I'm a taxpayer too. I don't get nothing out of it. I can't drink the water. Taxes is ridiculous, so it's not benefiting me. I don't think no building should be no bigger than it's supposed to be. No light should be higher where residents can't sleep at night because the light is shining in their home. All of this extra stuff, you asked for it to be approved originally. And now you want to keep coming back and asking for more, because you know what? Romulus is looked at as a dumping ground. That's what Romulus is looked at. I hear it in Wayne County. I hear it in Oakland County. We have to stop, and we have to allow our city to be respected and stop accepting anything for a nickel and a dime. We have to make sure that we're in positions to have things that the residents want, the kids, the safety of the kids. That property was an actual valuable property because that's where the city did the fireworks. So what do we do to fireworks now? Just forget the fireworks? Any kind of enjoyment that families can have is being taken away. For what, commercial? I was at a meeting and I could have swore it was said that no trucking docks would be on the front of the building. Well, next to GM, they probably got about 15 or more docks from the front of the building. what is really going on? I don't attend your meetings, but when the residents call me, I'm going to come. And I want you to know, as a taxpayer, I'm not happy with what's happening in Romulus at all. I'm not pleased. There's complaint after complaint, whether it be the school or the city. We got to do better. Money means absolutely nothing if you don't have peace. Money means absolutely nothing if you're not living where you can breathe clean air. My husband been driving a truck since he was 17. He's 71 now. Them trucks make so much noise. They spit out all kind of fumes. Don't let the Jake brakes get started. That noise is louder than the trains and the planes. So I'm not for sure everything that's going on, but I sympathize with the residents here in this city. They have a right to be heard. And they have a right to be heard over any business that choose to come dump their plans in our backyard. As I said, I live on E-course, so I'm going to be affected by this. They're just now, after 70-something years, doing E-course in Wayne Road. So you're going to do that and then tear it up? Because trucks are coming constantly. Constantly. Amazon promised, and I'm sure not this board, but the Planning Commission remembers, they promised that they were going to have those trucks routed from Vining to 94. How? You're going to be standing out there directing them? Because they're not doing it. They're coming straight down E-course. So just because they do a great presentation and make all kind of promises, don't mean they're going to keep them. And that's what people are sick and tired of. Businesses coming to this city, making all kind of promises, and have no intentions on keeping them. And when they look at our boards and our leadership not being bright, that's how they respect us, the residents. And that's why we keep getting all these industrial buildings. We don't have, it's embarrassing to only have Family Dollar and Dollar General to shop. We have the only major international airport in the entire state of Michigan. And we don't have nothing around it. So the zoning boards of appeal, the planning commission, need to put their heads together and do better on what you're allowing, what you're passing to come into the city. Because it's just not you sitting there making the decision, it's affecting us. And it's not fair. And I say that not trying to woo you one way or the other, but it's the truth. Use common sense. It's not about the money. Yes, they bought the land. They knew it was contaminated. They got a deal on that. But couldn't you find somewhere else to go? What about the kids? The kids is already suffering. They missed almost 2 years of getting pure education. And now you want to bring toxic right behind them? And like I said, they said the pond is going to be dry. How can we be assured of that? Because the one on Inkster Road is not. I was out there today. It stayed full of water. It stayed full of water. And when you approve something, and I'm going to talk with planning too, and council, and the mayor, because we letting these people come and they don't even want to fix the darn roads. You want to come and bring all these trucks in? What about widening the roads? You don't put nothing on the table to benefit the residents the long run. So consider it. Consider what these residents have said. I'm a resident too. Consider it. It's just not about the money. It's about the growth. Think about when the folks come, and I'm definitely talking to different people as a resident, to bring what we need, a grocery store, fine dining for our families, okay? Because Bob Evans, Big Boys, that's old. The young kids don't even go there. They don't even like McDonald's or Taco Bell anymore. They want sushi, Benahanas. So we got to do better, for real, because Romulus is stuck in a time zone, and we got to come out. We're not being respected, whether y'all see it or not. These companies don't respect us. They laugh at us because we're foolish to keep letting industrial buildings come, don't have really no idea who's going to lease it, if they're going to lease it, and what they're going to do when they lease it. So just think about what the future holds for the residents. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stanley Stanek. I reside at 37325 Ecorse Road. So Ashley Capital comes in here a while back. They say, we got this wonderful, beautiful, great idea to build these buildings. And this council approved it. They won. Now they're coming back and saying, you know what, guys? We didn't approve good enough. Now we want to raise it higher. We want to get our lights higher. We want to do this retention pond that seems to me it's inevitable to fail. That entire area is a wetland. That entire area floods constant. I don't see that working whatsoever, but now they're back and they're asking for you guys to approve to go bigger and better for them, not the residents. I hope that you guys do consider that. They didn't come prepared the first time. Now you have the opportunity to tell them no. Thank you.
There's no other, there's another person? Okay, here we go.
Good evening, how you doing? My name is Dale Justice. I live at 13510 Inkster Road, Romulus, Michigan. I got calls from residents today about this detention pond you're doing. I'm on Inkster Road. My ditches were never full of water. I have a detention pond going all around my property. Majority of you guys were here when that was voted in then, okay? I have standing water there all the time, and I want to know if these people are going to build, what are you going to do for us when the pond is full of water 24/7 that was supposed to be empty? Look at mine on Inkster Road. My ditches are full of water. I didn't have it there before. And they're full of water, leaves, there's ducks, there's everything there. And time again, when we came to you guys, it's going to be a dry pond. These guys are telling you it's going to be a dry pond. What are you guys going to do when it's not? That's their concern too, because I'm living it. They haven't lived it yet, but they're getting ready to. We as a city got to pull together and we got to take care of the residents. I know there's going to be businesses coming here and stuff like that, okay? But then when they did this pond, the detention pond by me, you know what their thing is? Well, it's Wayne County. The water's got to go in there, so you got to blame it on Wayne County. When these people have got water in their yards now, are they going to tell them it's Wayne County too? Huh? I mean, and we got to address this problem. We do have to take care of our citizens. I'm living with a pond all the way around me, water in it all the time, and it's supposed to be dried. My ditches are full. I just hope that you guys take care of these people better than you did me. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Neola Twildy Brewer, 39164 Clock Tower Drive, Commons. I've attended Metro Charter Academy, which is just past the railroad, and have suffered many tardies due to traffic, which are trucks due to the logistics. For example, GM, which is just by there. And it's just really not a good idea, honestly, in my opinion, to put these buildings right by a school, because I have suffered, as I said, tardies and been distracted due to the amount of trucks in and out of that area. And I just don't think that it's a good idea to have that by schools. And if I haven't necessarily, my school isn't by the trucking areas, schools that are by the trucking areas is going to be loud, and it's just not practical. Thank you.
If there's no other questions or comments from the audience, is there another one?
Actually,
What?
we do, because it's not going to get picked up. Can you ever come to the podium?
I'm sorry.
She has to go to the podium. She has to come to the podium.
I still didn't get that.
We're
What
sorry,
did
this
she
is
say?
how the meeting gets picked up. There's people at home watching on TV.
Okay, well, like I said, I definitely want him to hear this, so I did come back up here. I noticed when he was talking about the haunted house, he made a statement that he knows he can't have the lights shining in his neighbor's eyes, and yet you are contemplating allowing this. That was my final comment. Thank you.
If there are no further questions or comments from the audience, we'll close that portion of the public hearing, and we'll open it up for the board members for questions and comments. I guess what I would like to say, to start with, is that I've lived in Romulus all my life. Grew up here, went to Romulus schools, worked at the General Motors plant on E-course, and I lived nearby. And I've watched this city grow my whole life. It was a farm town when it started out. And over the years, we had the two railroads going. We had a north-south railroad going right through the center of town, east and west railroad going through town. But for years we had that. We lived with it. Back when the engines were coal-fired. And then all of a sudden, they started paving the roads, and then they put this, a road, now it's called I-94. When they first started, it was called the Expressway, and it ended at Wyoming. And then they had this little airport over there off Middle Belt Road, small, and during the Second World War, it was an Army Air Force base. It was kind of small, county airport. It developed into that. And then they started putting in expanding that airport, and they turned it into this humongous airport. I think you're all familiar with it. It has a lot of paved roads around it. We have I-94 going through it. And then they decided to put another expressway in called I-275, which goes straight through Romulus. We used to be a farm town. Now it's an industrial town. That's, with all that development, with the airport, those highways, made an ideal site for manufacturing. And it was perfect. We've got these expressways, we've got the railroads, we got the airport. We had Willow Run out there, which was just almost as big as the Metropolitan Airport. That's where we get all our traffic, and that's what draws these businesses and these warehouses. It's all a matter of supply and demand, and that's what we've been living with. I've lived that all my life and watched it grow up in this town. Some of the stuff we're just going to have to live with, I think. Unfortunately, that's just a fact of life. I live right real close to that site as well. I just, we have to understand that that's part of the business world. I live about less than a mile from that site. And I had my house built there in 1965, and I've lived there ever since. And I've watched this town grow.
My granddad used to say, just because you've done it wrong all your life, don't make it right.
Well, I'm just saying that's kind of my opinion here of this town. I'd like to see, the Walmart here and Myers in this town, but it ain't going to happen.
And how many people do you think that their buildings are going to bring in to make it happen? It's not going to happen.
It's got to be.
Not more industry.
I'm sorry, this lady wants to speak?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What you just said is unjustifiable because right now, where you grew up, the times you grew up, is not like it is right now. There is more families that have moved into this, great city, and the quietness is what they're looking for. And I feel like you saying that, you're just basically saying, okay, you don't matter. Thank you.
This particular site, I've watched, I'm aware of that. It's behind us, the middle school and the Romulus Elementary School there. And there was a terrible dump behind those back there for years. It was a toxic dump. There, a lot of fires back there. Just a nasty area. And for whatever it's worth, at least this will, regardless of who gets in there, something's like this is going to have to be done to clean it up. And they're making improvements on Wayne and Ecorse because of that kind of truck traffic and everything. I've watched that corner be terrible for the longest time. They finally are going to do something with it.
It's not going to last long.
Yep.
Because we increase truck traffic now, it's going to do square down.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
What?
She said you have to have it.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
You can't have the talking from
Yeah.
the audience. It's got to all go through there and through the chair, if you would please.
We've closed this portion of the public hearing, sir.
Just one last comment.
All right, go ahead.
I usually like to be prepared when I talk about things, and I'm kind of caught off guard with this one because, I learned about it 2 weeks ago. But when you say you just have to live with it, I can't live with that answer, right? Because I made a very big decision to buy a house here back in 2011. I have been looking at private properties to further maybe expand because my family has expanded and built. But what makes me nervous is, Ecorse, you have farmland there at Hannon. Are people looking to sell that portion, because that's right in my backyard. So you got to have boundaries, like the councilwoman said, there's plenty. If you look at the amount of traffic that goes down Ecorse with the trucks, it's not even bearable. My daughter was late several times, and it started when Amazon came. Before Amazon came, we were able to zip to school, get to work. It was great. But right now, it seems that everything over there is for sale. And if that was the case, you guys were selling these big subdivisions, these plans years ago, right? But if we had that knowledge that this is where this area was going to go, I would have made a different decision financially. So my question is, and I would love to, see if I can get this information, are there any public officials making any money off of this? Because I really want to know that. Are there any public officials making financial gain from this with Ashley Capital in the city of Romulus? Because that'd be a huge conflict of interest if it is.
Well, if you know of any, let the law know. I would do it.
But we don't know.
No. Public
No
officials
public
making
official
money on
has
this project.
any-
You talking about this project here?
Right, selling the property, the acres.
Mr. Chandler, if you want that answered on the record, perhaps the applicant can get up and just get it on the record if there are any public officials benefiting from this.
I'm saying again?
Perhaps to get that answer on the record, we need to start getting this conversation on the record as opposed to this back and forth between the board and the audience. And perhaps that question could be asked of the applicant. They could go up to the podium and answer. They would know if there's any public
Address your
officials that
question
are
to these
financially
gentlemen here.
involved with the project.
Kyle Morton from Ashley Capital. No, we haven't paid any public officials on this. We bought the city from the land, or bought the main piece of land from the city, and then, which went to I believe, the general fund. And then there were 5 private individuals, which I don't believe any of them work for the city. So.
All right, thank you.
The question through the chair was, if this does not happen, is the city stuck with the land? No, we've already purchased the land and own it.
When did you purchase it?
Through the chair, we purchased the land about 3 years ago. So it was in 2020.
Thank you.
As far as the city making any money on this, is they made some money on the application fees for the permits.
Yeah.
There's a $500 fee for a non-residential permit fee. And
I'm going to close this. I'm going to leave right after this, but I'm just in response to what you said. I think it was.
You already closed that.
yeah, we got to move on with it. You've
That's
already
okay,
had
I'm
your
leaving
chance.
right now. So,
Right.
my
Right,
issue with
thank
what you said is that we
Thank
have to
you,
live
sir.
with this.
Thank you.
And you guys zone the areas that are residential. And now you're allowing this to move into our backyards. So, if you had the foresight that this was the plan, then don't make it residential in the first place.
All right.
Okay, that's it, let's go.
All right, at this portion, we're going to leave this portion open for the board members for questions or comments.
So,
Mr. Lloyd?
yeah, I actually do have questions for Ashley Capital, just from listening to the residents. So I have a few questions. So, particularly, and I actually had this question even when I read through it before we came, the lights. So you guys are trying to move them to 25 feet, but in your documents, you showed that seemed to be really excessively high for what you guys are using it for. So why 25 feet and why not something a lot lower to help accommodate the residents?
Sure. So the light height of 25 feet is allowed in traditional industrial zoning districts. Largely, our problem is related to just the average height of a truck. If a truck is just over 13 feet, we have lights at 14 feet. We're going to have a ton of light, and we're not going to get good enough light dispersion across the parking lots. What we're doing is putting lights on the building, and then you put lights on the opposite side of the truck court. So we need to have higher light poles to be able to disperse the light.
No, I understand that. But there's a lot of space between 14 feet and 25 feet,
Yep.
right? So it seems like there could be maybe a better solution that won't affect the residents as much.
How does,
Mr. Morris?
how does it, why would it affect the?
Why would it affect the
We're not
residents?
talking about 25, it isn't going to be way above the trees or anything, or above
fair.
the top of the school. It's just gonna be, and like I say, there's going to be, a lot of things in between it.
Yeah.
I mean, you shouldn't really see the lights.
Through the chair, the closest structure, residential structure to the building is, depending on which direction you go, is 900 or 1,300 feet.
1,300
We're
feet.
talking three or four football fields in length.
Right.
These are the new LED light fixtures.
Right.
They disperse light down. These aren't old.
Yeah, see, they have the side shields.
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Correct.
I have a question too. With your design of these warehouses and the height, what is it that particularly designed for? What type of businesses would you attract to come in there? And it looks to me like it's mostly for storage and that sort of thing.
Correct.
But you won't get it like a machining operation, I don't think.
No,
with this.
correct, and that wouldn't qualify under the zoning code, under
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, but-
M1. So it typically is, our typical tenant is in the warehouse, distribution, or light assembly space, so maybe a small value-add automotive component, tenants like that. The new projects we just built in Van Buren were automotive, FedEx, and Our Next Energy, the battery manufacturer. So if it was that battery use, they wouldn't qualify in this location. They'd have to get rezoning.
But I noticed on the site plan, it doesn't look like you've got a lot of parking spaces there. So it's mostly, I don't see a lot of truck parking spaces.
I'd have to pull up a zoomed in to get the
that
count
going
of the
up
parking,
at
but
Planning Commission?
both the north and south sides of the building
Yeah.
have car parking on them. each individual building has its own
But it's
parking.
not like some of the warehouses where they've got the great big truck parking lots and the stalls for unloading and.
So the dock doors of the building are on the east and west sides, and the car parking's on the north and south sides.
It doesn't look like it's humongous as far, I mean, you got big buildings, but what kind of estimated traffic would you?
Oh, I'd have to pull out the traffic study. I mean, we have a full lengthy traffic study that was submitted to the city. I don't have those traffic volumes in front of me.
But mostly, nothing would come out onto the Wick Road side.
Correct, there's no driveway to it.
Yeah.
We don't own land that would get us there.
You would enter, how would you enter the,
So where the rain garden is shown on the plan, close to Ecorse Road,
Ecorse
we'll be
Road.
doing road widening and putting in a traffic signal there.
okay, so, like I said, they're not coming, your trucks are not coming down Wick Road or Ship Road or anything like that? Right, they're coming off of Ecorse Road?
Correct.
Right.
You can guarantee that?
Well, we can only go by the plans. I mean, if there's no road, there's no road.
No, they're saying,
Let's question the petitioner here. I have
Get a bang.
Miss,
You gotta stop her. You gotta stop her.
I'm sorry.
You have to stop her.
Doesn't stop. No, it's good.
Question through the chair for the petitioner.
All right, go ahead.
Across the street, the General Motors engine plant.
Yeah.
Been there since 74 or 5?
75. I
75.
was there when it opened up.
Do you know the rough square footage of that building?
Yeah. It's
I know when it was built.
over 1 million feet.
I know when it was built, it was in the Guinness Book of World Records as the largest continuous indoor space. Now it's number 3 on the list. Ford Brownstown Warehouse at Beach Daily in Pennsylvania took the top spot. They've both been knocked out by a flower place in Wales, England. Not England, but Wales. So over 1 million square foot in that building, right across the street. So this is what,
470 and 540.
Yeah, so this can't be an issue compared to what's across the street, no more than what? Quarter of a mile, maybe
That's across the street.
less than a half a mile away. So that building's there when a lot of people moved in, through your own words. It already pre-existed. That wasn't a problem then. The square footage of these buildings is less than that. It's in the direction everything's going. Everybody shops online, everybody's got cell phones, everybody uses the airport, everyone runs the freeway, everyone drives a car, everyone has a job, needs a job. Several people who talked tonight drove trucks. Nobody else is allowed to drive trucks anymore. There's give and take in all of this. And that's a dirty site that needs to be cleaned up. This is going to cap it and clean it up. There's even a chance the detention pond could drain the area. You don't know.
That was one of my questions.
I mean, it could do it.
Romulus residents will be given jobs. You use GM as an example. And I can tell you a lot of people around Romulus that work for GM, right? So it was a breadwinner. I don't know if this is going to be a breadwinner.
There's going to have jobs there. There's going to be jobs. It's going to provide jobs for the community. Anybody's free to go over there and get a job.
Through the chair, we also, at Planning Commission, mentioned that the Romulus residents would get a first crack at the jobs, and we'd have a job fair prior to opening it up to the general public.
Yes, but not exclusively because that's illegal.
Correct.
So there's people, I'm sure, that didn't like to see the commons get built. But there they are, nice houses, beautiful area, well-maintained, but they're there, and there's people who didn't like that. There's people who moved out because of that. Several comments tonight about houses that have been up for sale before this was even announced. So what would you blame on that? I mean, it's just give and take. The landowner is allowed to do what they want with their land if they follow the rules, apply for variances, the same as the homeowner is. We gave a guy a pole barn tonight that's oversized for his lot. sort of, but it's not. It fits in his boundaries. But it's a landowner right.
I got a question about.
It's following the law.
The detention pond. There's a county drain not too far from there. Is there any possibility that if that ever flooded or overflowed, it could maybe reach that county drain? It goes right in back of my house as far as that goes. Right down Wick Road. I forget the name of that drain, but it's a
The
county
Barlow.
drain.
Yeah.
Which one?
The Barlow drain.
Yeah.
What's the drain?
Yep.
As far as,
So
the
through the
subject
chair,
of flooding was
there's
brought
a
up.
few drains that connect. It's Post and Veely. They connect on the south, right to the south ends of the building. So we had a meeting with all of the Wayne County DPS team, leadership, drains, public works, and roads on Monday, and the mayor and economic development from Romulus. So we're both looking to address E-Course Road. This is a big overhaul of the road. For E-Course Road, the drainage on E-Course Road, and also the drains on the south end of the site. So the county made us aware that they're looking at a substantial road project and also a drain project to address concerns on the McClary, which also runs along E-Course.
What's the depth of that when that's excavated? How deep is that going to be?
Sorry, how deep
I thought I said.
Through the chair, Joe Webb's our civil engineer. He said that the basin's about 7 feet deep and you're allowed water storage of about 5.
Oh, okay. So approximately how many gallons of water would that hold?
Off his memory, it's 900,000 cubic feet.
That's a lot of water.
So, and
It's
through the chair, I
actually-
would note that that water right now just sheet drains off the landfill right
Now,
now.
did that area I know it was kind of low back there, anyway, did that ever flood? I don't recall, I've lived there forever, anything like that happened. There are big fires back there, but not flooding.
There's up to 70 feet of topography on the site, so there's a few low areas between the two landfill mounds that hold water, but those areas are in the landfill. They've got tires and cars in them, so they're not, these aren't ponds or creeks that are there.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you. Anybody else got any questions or comments?
Yeah, one more question. So with the retention pond, so there was some concerns voiced about mosquitoes. You guys said it's a dry pond, but maybe it won't be a dry pond after a while. Have you guys done any environmental studies to understand the impacts if it is not a dry pond, if water does retain there for a while, the impact for mosquitoes? Have you done any studies to look into that?
Joe Webb, Webb Engineering, 314 Pauline Boulevard, Ann Arbor. So the basin is designed to be dry, which means more or less that it is sloped to one common low point, and that low point actually discharges to the drain. So when we have a storm event, that basin will fill up, but again, the intention is that it drains dry to that low point and drains off-site. Ashley Capital has done extensive testing, environmentally and geotechnically, through the entire development to find out what we have to do to actually keep stormwater and groundwater separated. So what we're going to be doing is a low permeable clay liner on the bottom of the basin to keep those two things from interacting.
Thank you.
On that retention, on your retention pond, when the water accumulated in there, how long are you predicting it would take it for it to flow? Because if it's summertime,
So there's different time frames that Wayne County requires for your stormwater to discharge. For your sediment, for your first flush, which is about a half-inch of water over the site, they want that released over 24 hours. That way you're allowing all those sediments to fall out, and you're letting cleaner water exit the site. For the remainder, when we get up to our CPVC volume and our 100-year volume that we're supposed to store, those can, I believe it's somewhere around 2 days for it to drain dry after a storm event.
2 days.
I believe, I'll have to check that.
Storm event, What happens if it takes months? What happens if it takes months?
You can't do that. You can't do that.
We've engineered the pond to drain in 2 days, right? I don't, the answer of what would happen if it took months, what's causing it to take months, right? I don't, did the railroad block the drain? Did the county do a road project and dam it? I don't know how to, it's meant to drain by elevation, right?
That's what I thought.
So maybe, it sounds like what you're getting at is some concern about water being in that pond back there. If there was, how far is that pond from the closest residence? So any of these residents access to that pond, they don't have access to that pond. It's how many feet away from the residential property lines?
I don't have the exact number in front of me, but I'm assuming to the closest house, it's over 1,000 feet.
So what would be the impact if there were water in there and if the concern is mosquitoes? 1,000 feet?
And it should be.
Is that what the
Yeah,
question is?
I'm not sure
Is
what the
that why
concern is,
the-
but
In terms of the water being in the pond, that it creates mosquitoes?
That
Mr. Lloyd, is
was
that what you're
was the
getting at?
intent behind the question.
That's the intent behind the question. So can you guys answer what kind of impact are,
So we are able to treat the ponds. It does require some supervision by the county and Eagle. This is not a conservation easement piece, so we are, if we think there's an excessive mosquito problem. We're also next to 180 acres of conservation easement, right? So we can treat the pond itself, and it's the reason why it's a dry detention basin. But we can't, 2 feet over the line, we can't touch a puddle with mosquitoes. And that, through the chair, I just want to make one comment. 3 or 4 residents said that we've changed our mind or come back and changed something. These requests were specifically directed from the Planning Commission to the Zoning Board of Appeals, right? These were on our plans when we submitted it. When we came to public meetings, this is what we asked for. Our acceptance by Planning Commission was conditioned upon receiving an approval from this board, and the plans are the exact same and the images are the same as what we presented last time. So to say a detention pond was added, or we changed our mind and needed a taller building, or that I didn't know how high a truck was, that this was talked about the last meeting. So for whether or not individuals are receptive to it, we are not lying and have not lied about anything we put in this presentation.
you guys have granted several variances to building height for buildings this size. It's one of the ways that, we kind of work our ordinance. The M1 district, buildings over 80,000 square feet are special land uses. They received special land use. The bigger the building, it tends to be the bigger, the scale and the height. That's why you've seen them on the other buildings of this nature, these warehouse distribution buildings. So he's right. We never saw a plan with a lower building. These variants, the same thing with the light poles. It wasn't that they were at a certain level that complied with the ordinance and then changed. It's always, and these are the exact same buildings that City Council saw when they sold the property and when the City Council approved the brownfield plan. So this is not anything new. It's been there for the last, I think, Kyle, when did they first see the City Council first saw this layout when they sold the property in 2020?
And through the chair, correct. The footprint's actually gotten smaller, I believe, since
Right.
it originally.
And you were originally considering 3 buildings.
3 buildings, and we originally were considering access to Wick Road, but we
Right.
heard
Right.
vociferously that that's not going to happen, so.
Carol, do you know if any of that property was ever designated as a wetlands?
There's a ton of, they can tell you all about that.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
I mean, with the official designation was some of that wetlands area?
Correct. There are wetlands. A large portion of the conservation easement is wetlands. And then in terms of our roughly 80-acre development piece, there's probably over 20 acres of wetlands on that. So a large portion is staying, the portion that we're impacting, it's just under 5 acres, is between the two landfills. There's a low-lying ditch that's just got standing water in it. It collects all the water that runs off the high points right now. It kind of serves as a detention infiltration basin, for lack of better description, and it's got tires and cars, and we've had Eagle out there, so we have an outstanding wetland permit that we're working through the final pieces with Eagle right now.
I don't recall that ever flooding back there, or being wet.
I think it's different based on the conditions. Certain areas can retain some water, but where the buildings are going, they're built up high points right now.
All right, thank you.
I got one last question for Ashley. So this property was all purchased off of City of Romulus?
Excuse me, if we're, and this is, we just have this protocol, and because we're recording, because there's, so all the people watching on TV can't hear you. So what you would, if you could, through the chair, have the chair recognize you, have you go to the microphone so it can all be heard and picked up on TV. So the chair needs to recognize you though and let you be. Is he okay to speak outside of the public hearing? The public hearing's over, but if you choose to acknowledge him, just have him go to the microphone.
Through the chair, I can just.
Let's wrap this up here a little bit.
So, well, so through the chair, the question was.
Go ahead, all right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brett, come on
Come
up.
up to the podium, excuse me.
No, I appreciate it. So, just my last question was this land completely purchased from the city of Romulus, or was there any private sale with this land at all?
I have no idea. Do anybody?
Mr. Morton can actually show a picture that shows which properties were.
Through the chair, there's a graphic that's on the screen right now. So
there you go.
the main portion of the site was
there you
purchased from the city. It included pretty much the entire conservation area, and then the southern landfill. The northern landfill is, we refer to it as the pallet farm. It's the pallet grinding and crushing and recycling operation. They were the second landfill. And then we purchased, I believe it was 3 homes that fronted E-course that allowed us to align a traffic signal at the GM driveway.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. Ashley Capital has pretty well covered all of those requests for variances. There was, let's see, we had, the first one was for the height variance, and then there's another one was for lighting. And we had,
No, just the height building.
the use
pole-
variance.
The pole light.
Okay.
What you might want to do is use the agenda kind of as a guide. You will need to make separate motions. The first one, the building height, which is case number 8, and that's the building height for 2 buildings. So we didn't separate those into 2 separate variants, so that's going to cover the building height for 2 buildings. The next one is 9, case number 009, and that's for the light pole height. And then the third one is for case 010, which is the use variance to allow the detention pond on the residential portion of the property. So there's basically 3 separate motions on 3 different cases.
Yeah, I knew we'd have to do separate motions, but it was just, at this point in time, I think they pretty well covered, answering questions about those particular variance requests. So at this time, I think it's time for a motion on these. We'll move to item C for BZA -2023-008, and that was for the building height. It's for Romulus Distribution Center. We'll start with that one, and that's for the building height. to go from 35 feet to 47 feet.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Morris?
I move we recommend the approval of the distribution center height to allow 2 warehouse distribution buildings of 47 feet in height. Okay, yeah, we're just going to do that.
If you could reference the conditions on page 4
And reference
of
the
the ordinance.
conditions of special land use approval by the city council. Everybody should understand that. The city council approved the special land use.
They still have to go to city council for it, for the special land use.
Number 2, use variance being granted by BZA. And 3, submission of a revised site plan addressing all outstanding items as, yeah. So, I think that's it, isn't it?
The,
Recommendations.
Yes.
yes.
Yes, those are the 3 conditions.
Well, those were that was for the use
For that one.
variance.
Okay.
I had the wrong letter too.
Okay.
So I move that.
Okay. So,
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Morris. Is there a
Yes, it
support
is.
for that motion?
the use variance.
Support?
Okay. Moving on, we have a motion by Mr. Morris, supported by Mr. Frederick, to approve the variance request for BZA 2023-008 Romulus Distribution Center and their request for a building height variance. And the variance is to allow a variance of building height of 47 feet. Any questions on that motion? If not, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Jones? No. Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. That variance request has been approved, and that's for the building height.
Right.
And moving on to the next one. Right?
Yeah.
Item D, that's BZA 2023-009 for Romulus Distribution Center, Ashley Capital. It's for light pole height, and the variance request is to allow an increase of pole height from 14 feet to 25 feet.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Morris, supported by Mr. Frederick, to approve the variance request for the light height from 14 feet to 25 feet for BZA 2023-009.
And again, subject to these 3
It's
conditions?
Subject to the conditions by the planning department.
Conditions, what are the conditions?
It's the same 3 conditions.
We got too
Oh,
many
same
papers
3
here.
conditions.
Same
okay.
3, special land use approval by city council, use variance
Right,
approval by you guys,
Where we
and
at?
submission of a revised site
Okay.
plan.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this Morris is, this request is approved for approval of that by Mr. Morris, supported by Mr. Frederick. Take a roll call vote. Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd?
No.
Mr. Jones?
No.
Chair votes yes. We have a majority approval on that. So we have two noes and 3 ayes or yes. So that motion has been approved. for the light height.
Before you entertain the use variances are a little different. You're going to need 2/3 votes, so you're going to need 4 yes votes. And any of you that are voting no, if you decide to not vote on this, what should have happened on these other 2 dimensional variances, you need to get your findings of fact on the record. So you need to have some reasons as to why the reports that are as part of the record are supporting these variances. We have found that they, and if you do vote against them, you need to put findings of fact on the record stating why you disagree and why you don't find them. But the use variance it's important, and there needs to be 4 yes votes.
Is that to be done before the vote or after the vote?
No, what you'll do is you'll take your vote, and if any of you vote against it, you're just going to want to for the following reasons. You're going to need to have your reasons as to why if you decide to deny it. It's a zoning, it's a little different because it's not a dimensional, it's a use variance, right?
That's true.
Right, so.
All right, so we got another one here. E on the agenda. It's BZA 2023-010 for Romulus Distribution Center, Ashley Capital. It's a use variance. The use variance is in accordance with Section 22-03D. Use variances of the zoning ordinance to allow a detention basin associated with a warehouse distribution development on 5.7 acres of property. Is zoned R1A, single-family residential. And that's regular. We need a motion for that.
So moved.
Mr. Morris?
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Morris, supported by Mr. Frederick, to approve the use variance for Romulus Distribution Center, Section 22-03D. Well, okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. That the use variance has been approved. So that's it for Romulus Distribution Center. So all the 3 variance requests have been approved. All right, where are we at here? Getting a little shook up here. All right, moving right along. Item F on our agenda is BZA 2023-011 Sheets. And the location is 33380 Wick Road. And the request is a variance from section 14.01F off-street parking requirements of the zoning ordinance to allow 4 additional parking spaces, increasing the maximum allowable spaces from 51 to 55 spaces for a drive-through restaurant, convenience store, and fueling station. And the project is construction of gas station, convenience store with a restaurant. And that's
There he is.
Good evening. My name is Aman Walia from Sheets Real Estate Team. I have my colleague here, Scott Armstrong from also Real Estate Team, and I have Becky Klein from PEA Group. I would like to start with the brief introduction for Sheets, and then we can get into what we're proposing and asking for the variance. So what is the Sheets? Sheets started in 1952 in Altoona, PA as a deli store. by Bob Sheets. And eventually they rolled out with fuel, and then they rolled out with MTO, which we call it made to order, which is like our screens where you order and customize food. Today you can order 1.8 million ways and customize it. We offer different variety of foods. When it comes to food like Mexican food, salads, burgers, sandwiches, and other varieties as far as fried food and all of that stuff. For the company itself, we are in 6 states right now. Michigan would be our 7th state. We are in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and Maryland. We have close to 700 stores as of right now and over 28,000 employees.
Wow. I didn't know that.
So this is how the building looks like currently with our most recent prototypical store. And this is the outside of the building. And as you can see, we like to put brick on all 4 sides, including the pillars on the fuel islands, depending on, of course, like where we are and how it's required of us. This is the inside of the store. As you can see on the right, that is our kitchen and the dining area. And on the left, that's our main lobby area where we have our checkouts and our queuing aisles. And this is the inside dining area. It's right in front of the kitchen area usually. What makes us unique? We are a 24/7 business, and we service basically same service throughout the day. So if you want to order a breakfast sandwich, you can order in a day, and then you can also order it at night. We like to call ourselves very family-oriented because almost 22 members of the family are still included and working with the company.
I know about those family companies.
And we are also heavily involved in the community. Every time we open a store, we give out $2,500 check to Special Olympics. We also tie up with the local food banks so that we're not wasting any food or anything like that. And that's our location, coming to Romulus, which is on Vining and Wick, northeast corner. This is our most recent store open in Cleveland. Okay, I will turn it over to Becky Klein.
Good evening. My name is Becky Klein with PEA Group. As mentioned, I'm the civil engineer of record, and this layout here basically shows you the site plan of what we're proposing for this property. For those of you who remember, the previous project that was proposed here, the Royal Farms gas station. This is very similar in appearance. It's going to function the same way with the diesel fueling on the north side of the site, and then the passenger vehicle fueling on the south side. The center of the property will have the convenience store restaurant to it, and then they have a large queuing area on the east side. The Royal Farms had a car wash in that location. So what we're asking for today is a parking variance. According to the calculations in the ordinance, we are allowed a maximum of 47 spaces. We are requesting 52. So how that breaks down is there are 6 spaces counted at the dispensers under the canopy. Those go into the parking count. We have 43 of what you might call traditional regular parking spaces, and we have 3 ADA spaces. So that total will add up to the 52, which is 5 over the ordinance, and that is why we're asking for a variance tonight. Oops. All right, so just to blow up that area a little bit, the green highlighted spaces are those under the car canopy. The yellow highlighted spaces are the traditional parking spaces, and then I have highlighted the 3 ADA spaces in blue. So our basis for asking for this request is that, as Sheets mentioned, they are operating, several of these stores all over the place, in excess of 100. They've learned through their years of operating these that optimal parking at one of these sites is generally between 50 and 55 spaces. In addition, this site is intended to be a support site. It's actually part of the approval process for the larger North Point development that surrounds this property, that a gas station with diesel fueling for trucks be built at this location. So, they're expecting to be a direct support, and the traffic flow is designed that way. So on that basis, we believe that asking for the additional parking is justified. And the Royal Farms project, in fact, was approved by this board for a larger variance than what we're asking for. They were granted 33 spaces above the ordinance.
Sure.
So just to give you an overview, this is the NPD Romulus site plan. So that full development that's taking place to the north and the east of our Unit 4, which is highlighted in red. So our little gas station is that little bit at the corner, and you can see the larger industrial development that's going to be going in around it. So finally, this is just a little summary. For the Royal Farms project, this is actually not a great image of what that looked like at the time. But again, they were granted 33 spaces for a total of 84 back in 2021. So in summary, there's 5 criteria that you guys typically use to justify whether or not a variance is supportable. One is exceptional circumstances. So in this case, we're requesting substantially less than what was previously approved. It's necessary for the enjoyment of substantial property rights similar to other properties in the vicinity. Again, this is in keeping with the scope and massing of the parking in that larger industrial development. It will not be detrimental to the neighborhood. It'll be consistent, again, with the scale of the parking in the adjacent properties. It's not going to impair the intent of the ordinance. This is really a very small variance that we are requesting. And the need for the variance was not created by the applicant. The need's based on operational data from Sheet's long history of running these sites. And the planned role is going to have a more intensive use that justifies the larger parking. So that is the presentation I have for you, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you. Notices have been sent out for this public hearing by first-class mail, and an affidavit is on file. And at this point in time, we'll open it up for the audience for questions, comments on this project. Okay.
Ready to go? Franklin Shaw, 36739 Wick Road, Romulus, Michigan. I just had a quick question for Sheets. Are you guys also a truck stop for semis, the fuel stuff? Yes. Okay, yes, please.
So yes, the project is going to function as a truck fueling station. Whoops, I'm sorry. Hit the wrong button. So if you see that area up at the top labeled as truck, so vehicles will enter from Vining Road and then they will head out on the eastern drive, and then that actually circles around and there's a signalized intersection for trucks to leave. Now, the important thing to note is that they do not allow overnight parking, so the truck vehicles will fuel up. They have a stop bar there just to the right of the canopy, so truck drivers can pull forward and stop there for up to 10, 15 minutes to run inside, use the restroom, grab a sandwich, but they're not allowed to linger any longer than that. So it won't be any overnight parking or idling of vehicles all night long in this facility.
And if I can explain a little bit further, it's technically not a truck stop. This use, the diesel truck fuel, is an accessory use to the vehicle. It's the primary use here is a gas station and convenience store with an accessory drive-through restaurant and accessory diesel fueling pumps. This required approval from both the Planning Commission and City Council. City Council did vote last week to approve the special land use for that, but it is not a truck stop. Truck stops have a different definition, and as Becky pointed out, the big thing is overnight truck stop is primarily a diesel servicing trucks as opposed to vehicles. The primary use here is vehicles, and the accessory diesel fueling is to accommodate the industrial development, the industrial North Point development to the north, and additional truck traffic in the area, but primarily North Point.
And through the chair, an additional more information from Planning Commission end. Well, the way that's designed, the trucks are up here.
Right.
They can't come back to Wick Road.
Exactly.
They have to go out this road right here that circles
That's what
back
I was
around.
gonna ask.
Into the
Brings them
development.
back to Vining with a left turn only, back to 94, no right turn by its very design.
Right.
Okay, I was just asking because, we keep hearing no more truck traffic, but now there's a truck stop. And I appreciate you explaining to me what a truck stop is. Because, I only drove over the road for 13 years. I know what a truck stop is.
Yeah, right.
And Sheets is a truck stop. I went to it many times. I had to fuel up there. I'm not saying anything bad about them. I just know truck drivers. And from experience, 95% of the truck drivers are blatant pigs. They'll pee in bottles and they'll throw it out the window, right when they're coming off the freeway. You see it everywhere, right by the freeway. That's right in our neighborhood again. So again, I thank you guys for the lack of your concern for the citizenry. You just keep doing what you're doing, I said, I'm moving.
Turn the damn thing off.
Okay.
And then you were here to take up the citizens, not after the damn wall.
It's a joke. Oh, my God.
What did he say?
I don't know what he said.
Hi, Virginia Williams. I would just like to say thank you for not allowing overnight truck parking. I just wanted to say that, Charlie. Thank you.
He did that. He didn't do it.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we'll.
I got
open it-
one question.
I
Where
was
you
gonna
said
open it
there
up.
was no overnight, they're going to be there for a few minutes. Now, if a truck will fuel up and wants to go to the place to eat, sit down and eat, there is a flexible, maybe have about 45 minutes as far as a truck can stay there if he decide he wants to go to the restaurant and eat.
So you're asking if they stay longer than 45 minutes, or is it a time limit?
Yeah, right. But it can be that, if they want to use that restaurant, they can have enough time to go in there and use the restaurant without.
Yeah, they
Okay.
should have enough time to
I
go
mean, I understand it
in.
won't be overnight.
Correct.
Of course.
Correct.
Can't be. There's no parking.
Thank you.
Can I make one statement? I'm Scott Armstrong with Sheets as well. It's not a full-service restaurant. It's a touch point, quick service restaurant.
Okay.
More so than full service.
Can-
So they can order it, pick it up, and go in their truck and be on their way.
Can, Becky, maybe can you point out on the site plan those spaces where they would stop and then go into the restaurant? Up by it's that truck to the,
So they would,
right,
you'll pull up and stop right here.
right, and then go in, right.
So the trucks are gonna come in here, fuel up, enter here, and then this is the stop bar here, where they would stop at, and then exit this way through the site.
Just wanted to point out that there's no designated truck spaces on the site so that they could stay and sit there all day or night. So it's very, very controlled.
I just want to be clear because I hear restaurant, and when I think of a restaurant, it's like a sit-down place. So is this like a Speedway where you can go in and order from the board and then leave?
So, yes, so we do have screens in the store, so you go in, you just order at the order point, and we make it right there. It's an open layout kitchen, you can see when we're making it, and then you can just grab and go.
Okay, I mean, I just wanted to be clear because you say restaurant, but a restaurant, most restaurants, you go in, you sit down, and you can eat your food. Speedway, they have like a counter where you can maybe sit up there for a few minutes and eat your food and then leave. So I don't want to be misleading to the residents to have them to think that we have a restaurant coming to where you can bring your family and sit down and eat. It's more like, as I said, even during a council meeting, it's more like a speedway. It's a board, you go in and you pick your order, you get your food, you can sit down at that counter around the wall, or you can leave. So it's not, I mean, I keep hearing restaurant. It's a different meaning when you say restaurant.
Go back to the slide. So we have indoor seating for roughly 30 people, and we do have outdoor seating if you choose. So there is seating there. But this is all made to order food. It's not roller grill stuff. It's all made.
I understand it, but I'm saying because we don't have anything, I'm not against you comment. What I'm saying is, with certain words can be misleading, because when you say restaurant, you're looking to, well, I can go in and sit down and somebody can come take my order. You're ordering from the board, just like Rural Farms. Okay, I just wanted to be,
Service restaurant.
They just go in.
I just wanted to be clear, not be beating up on you guys, but it is to make sure that the residents are getting what they've been screaming for, that's all.
Sure.
Thank you.
No other questions or comments? Open it up to the board members for questions and comments.
So, just a quick,
Mr. Lloyd?
yes, sorry, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. The paperwork says an expansion of 55 spaces. The presentation says 52 spaces. Which one is accurate?
Did we,
There is what appears to be a typo in the agenda.
Yeah.
So what we're asking for is 52 spaces, which is 5 more above the allowed 47.
I believe what we did is because there was a little bit of difference in calculating the parking requirement, so I think what we said is let's just give them a range, 51 to 55 spaces, give you up to 55, and if you needed to squeeze in a few more, it would cover it. But if you want to be a specific number, that's fine too, so.
Any other questions, comments? Oh, motion's in order.
Motion to approve BZA 2023-011 sheets requesting variance from section 14.01, F6 off-street parking.
Support. Whatever.
Wait. Who's the support?
Mr. Jones. That's a joke.
Mr. Jones. All right, we have a motion by Mr. Lloyd, supported by Mr. Jones, for BZA 2023-011 sheets. The location is 33380 Wick Road, and the variance request is to add 4 additional parking spaces, up to 55. And the motion is to approve that request. Any questions on the motion? If not, we'll take a roll call vote. Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. The motion, or request has been approved for that. Item G is BZA-2023-012 for First Class Self-Storage LLC. Location is 29109 Beverly Road. The request is for a variance from section 11.12A. It's use standards, self-storage facilities to allow a 37,000 square foot self-storage building on property that is 2.16 acres, where a minimum of 4 spaces is required. and a variance from section 8.04A for area, height, and placement requirements to allow a 10-foot setback adjacent to a residential property where 50 feet is required, and the project is construction of a self-storage facility. Would the petitioner come forward and give us your name, please?
I will. Good evening, gentlemen. Brian Oakley. I live at 16580 Christie Lane here in Romulus. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I got a little piece under contract that's not big enough for what your ordinance requires, but I think it's a perfect spot for what I'm trying to do. That's the main variance, obviously, is the minimum lot size, and then the side variances. And I put it in the summary, and I'm sure you've seen it. Both the residential properties, or I should say both the properties that are zoned residential on the east and west side of the parcel I've got under contract, are currently not residential, or at least not totally residential. Most of you fellows know the Lalonde brothers that have been fixing mufflers. Well, actually, I guess their dad started probably 60 years ago, fixing mufflers in the parcel to the east, and the two sons are still fixing mufflers there. I just confirmed last week that Dale does live in the little house there. But I submitted letters from both the Lalondes and the owner on the other side. They know what I'm after. They know what I'm trying to do. They're all in favor. So I think that's pretty much it as far as the summary. I don't have nice slides like Ashley Capital.
All right. Notice of this public hearing have been sent out to the property owners, and I have an affidavit on file that has been sent out. And we'll close that portion and open it up to the audience for questions or comments on this project. If there are none, then we'll open it up to the board members for questions and comments.
I think there's one comment.
I'm sorry. Oh,
There's one comment.
sorry.
Again, I had a question. The resident contacted me pertaining to this, and the purpose, the normal acres, the minimum was 4 acres, and the property is only 2.16? Well, the paperwork says 2.16. So is that a typo also?
It is from the, it doesn't have the right of way. It's probably the net acreage, probably what we have on the road. Right.
Well, this document need to be, corrected because it's saying 2.16. And then the setback, is the setback from the street or both sides of the residence?
The setback is from the property line, the side property line.
Side?
On the east side, right.
Just on one side or both sides?
It's on the one side.
So it looks like it's on 3 sides according to the picture.
Well, that's what he's showing, that's the setback in the district, is the 10 feet, but when you're adjacent to a residential use, you've
So
got to
on
be
the-
50 feet.
So on the east and west sides is really what we're talking about.
The other, did we confirm that the west side has got a residential use? It's not zoned residential. Let's look. So the acreage is per the assessor's records. That's where that came from. The property is zoned M1. The property to the property to the east is zoned M1, but contains a residential use. Hence the reason for the variance request. The property to the west is also zoned M1, light industrial, but according to city records, does not contain an active residential use.
My
That's
question
variance.
is, it's required a 50-foot setback
From a residential use.
from a residential use.
Right.
And you're saying that the property on the west side is not considered
There's not a-
residential?
The properties are zoned industrial, and the property to the west, if I could get it up. Do you know what your building, what the building, there's a non-conforming commercial use in there, isn't there?
Yes.
Is
They're
there-
both,
but-
yeah.
but
They're
there's-
zoned, I mean, they're zoned M1.
They're zoned
but
M1, they're
There is a
industrial.
residential use on the east side. The west side, according to records, there's not a residential use, but there may be, but I know both sides are running businesses out of them.
And you're saying, see, and this is the issue that I have, because the neighbor, one of the neighbors that live in that subdivision across the street questioned me, and so I'm asking you, so she'll know. But it appears that you're not for sure, because either it is or it's not. I mean, I know
we're
the city
sure.
records, some of the city records are old, outdated, but when you're voting on something, it should be clear. Is it or is it not? You know, because I don't want to go back and tell her, well, they wasn't for sure, because it's like
No,
you're not
we-
for sure.
We know for sure, and the petitioner put on record, he's talked to the resident to the east, and actually has a letter in the packet from.
I'm not talking about talking to the residents, I'm saying what the city have on record. You're saying that the normal requirements are 50 feet.
50 feet next to a residential district.
Right.
This is not next to a residential district.
It's not.
Or,
I'm gonna read all three of them.
Even though the
legal
young man, even though the
non-conforming use.
resident living in a home is not residential?
Well, that's the variance, because it's next to a residential, there's a residential use even in an M1 district, so that's why the variance is needed from the 10 to 50, because since it's a use, it would still require the 50 setback, and that's why they're requesting the variance for the 10, even though it's zoned M1.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear, because I'm going based on what she gave me.
Yes.
And then, so, I'm sure, is this televised,
I believe so.
the meeting? Okay, so when did it normally come on? When does this meeting air?
Right now.
Oh, so it's live. So
Sure.
what I'm saying is, in case she's not watching it now,
She can watch it tomorrow.
she can
It'll
watch it
be-
tomorrow,
right.
okay. I'll let her know, thank you.
Three letters to read into the record from residents. Okay?
Yeah, you're chairman, you can do whatever.
All right. This is in regard to side yard setback variance request for 29109 Beverly Road. It says, "To whom it may concern, I own the 3-acre parcel located at 28987 Beverly Road, which is directly to the east of the petitioner's parcel. I am aware that the petitioner seeks a side yard variance adjustment from 50 to 10 feet. I have no objections to the reduced side yard setback or petitioner's proposed self-storage project." And it's signed Rami Abbasi. I have another letter to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And it's, "Dear members, I am the owner of the captioned property. My business plans for this property have changed, and I am now selling it to First Class Self-Storage LLC. I hereby acknowledge and support that First Class Self-Storage LLC will require a dimension variance for its proposed use of the captioned property. Please feel free to contact me with any questions, comments, or concerns," and it's signed Slajian Mitkowski. I believe I pronounced that right. I have it just close. Another letter regarding that setback variance. "To whom it may concern, the Verna Lalonde Trust owns 29169 Beverly Road, which is directly to the west of the petitioner's parcel. I am aware that petitioner seeks a side yard variance adjustment from 50 feet to 10 feet. I have no objections to the reduced side yard setback or petitioner's proposed self-storage project." And it's from a trustee of the Verna Lalonde Trust.
That's Vernon Malone.
Is that, I'm sorry. Verna, that's who it's from, Verna Lalonde. Okay, that's it. And if there's no other questions or comments, we'll open up to the board members for questions.
So just a comment, I appreciate you getting the letters from the residents to the direct east and west.
I
think
thought
that
it'd make it easier for
that
you.
was very helpful, so thank you for that.
Oh, yeah. So where are we at here? Okay. No more questions or comments? I believe, but motion is in order.
I move we accept the BZA 2023012 first-class self-storage.
In a second.
Is that to approve the two?
Yeah, to approve.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Morris, supported by Mr. Lloyd. Excuse me.
Make sure that the conditions get added to the motion.
Okay. Conditions. You want me to state them?
I can. The variances are applicable to first-class self-storage development only, and site plan approval by the planning commission.
Right. Okay.
Pretty simple.
Okay.
We like them on the record.
Pretty standard.
Okay, you're including those recommendations?
Yeah.
All right. Any questions on the motion? If not, the motion is for approve a variance to approve the use standards variance, and also a variance from the area height placement requirements for 10-foot setback adjacent to the residential property where 50 feet is required. Take a roll call vote. Mr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Lloyd?
Yes.
Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Your various requests have been approved. Good luck with your project.
Appreciate it.
Where am I at here?
You're at,
I think City Hall, I think.
old business. Keep going. Keep
Oh,
turning.
where are we
Keep
at?
turning.
Where are we at? Oh,
Oh, okay.
any
Nice to
other
meet
questions
you.
or comments? If not, item 6 is under old business. We got any old business? Monkey business? No.
Any old business, Bill?
New business? We got a lot of new business, I think.
No, nothing besides what you did.
No old business.
Your petitions, nothing.
But they're not on the board yet.
Item 8, communications, and I think we can find some new business under
You
city.
will find some new things going on
The
this
city
status
planner
report.
status
Yep.
report.
We've got a lot of stuff coming.
This is getting bigger every time we look at it.
That's good.
So, as of right now, we won't know until early next week whether you've got a meeting for September. There's rumblings of some cases out there that need variances, but nothing that's moved far enough along. So, as it looks now, there's nothing that's been filed. Is there nothing coming out of the building department, right?
No, nothing as of right now.
Okay, so,
If
But
we
that
have-
can all change in a day.
If we have something, keep it below a quarter of an inch.
yeah. We actually squeezed one on at the last minute tonight. The paperwork had been in through the building department, but the actual variance application hadn't gotten in. And so we said, look, you're in the system, you've been denied by the building department, we'll get this variance on. So that one was gonna come in September, and so but it was one of your quick ones earlier, so.
That was the pole barn.
The pole barn.
Well, we've gone from pole barns to million-square-foot warehouses. You name it, we cover it.
There's a lot going on here, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
That's what I brought up when I mentioned the history, kind of the history of Romulus, how it's developed.
Oh, yeah.
If it wasn't for that airport and these expressways, we'd still be plowing the fields and putting corn in.
Yeah. Sure would.
Yep. So in terms of Romulus Distribution Center, which is, needless to say, drawn a lot of attention, they do have to go to city council for the special land use approval, and it's tentatively scheduled for August 28th, but it may end up being that first week in September, depending on the plans. Just came in today, so we've got to see the condition of them and make sure they're ready and nice and clean before they go to council. So, and work on any kind of scheduling conflicts, but it looks like that one should be moving out of here pretty quick.
Sounds good.
Well, like I say, I understand how people are concerned, but they, like I said, like Sheldon said about Romulus, both of us have been here our whole lives, and we wanted stores and everything, but they won't come because we don't have massive, subdivisions, and nobody will build a store unless you have.
You don't have the population.
Or the people to buy the stuff.
Right.
And, but, like I said, I think, I really think that we've done a good job of, making it look as nice as we can. And as far as that project tonight, that's actually gonna improve that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
It's taking a
really.
contaminated site,
You're not,
cleaning it
you're
up.
certainly not gonna put
It's-
houses in.
Right, right. It's tucked back, it's not on the road, the light that's going in, the traffic study basically says that traffic is not gonna get any worse. In fact, it's very likely to get better between the light going there and the improvement at Wayne and E-Course, tax base, jobs.
No.
It's, yeah.
It's-
There's other issues in the area. The planning commission, as Jerry can tell you, the current truck traffic that's been on WIC, which actually has been reduced with the opening of the ramp, the 275 ramp from 94, that's cut down tremendously on traffic. There is truck traffic that goes through there. It's more of an enforcement issue. The concern about access, but came up tonight, it's never gonna happen, not with this plan, anyway. It's not a truck route, it's not a truck route, so.
Through the chair, Wayne Road and E-Course, what is its timeline?
Last I heard was
Wednesday.
Christmas,
Yeah,
but I don't know if that timeline's changed. That's what I heard at the beginning.
If it's like the water project, it might take a little longer than that.
So, I mean, literally,
5 years?
literally overnight, when that intersection opens,
oh, it's.
everything's gonna change overnight, literally. Completely. Hannon Road's gonna change, everything's gonna change.
And then when you get
Back to
just like
normal.
that, just like that, water job, that was scheduled pipe. When no pipes come, they have to go in the exact place. If you have one come back, job was shut down to that.
And you came from where?
Because you can't go no farther. And I heard they had got problems with
What's the
getting
difference?
some material. See, I know that, because that's what I used to do.
Yeah, obviously.
I don't put a lot of those pipe
They
in.
couldn't get under the railroad tracks like they wanted.
And all that
Man,
stuff.
that, when you start
Yeah, I live in
doing
the same
railroad
subdivision
tracks,
as
Ain't digging no
city
tracks.
council.
hey, I've had to drill.
You know, when I went in the
25,
Navy,
30 feet down
I
and bore all
joined the
kinds of.
Navy, and when I left
You got
for
machine
boot camp,
coming in
they
force.
said, sayonara Romulus, I
Yes.
ain't never gonna back to Romulus.
Yeah.
And I did, Mr. Chairman. Ain't never left Romulus.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
we're
still
still
there.
on, we're still on board.
Yeah.
Yep,
Is there-
we need to, yeah.
If we need to-
Adjourn,
we
and
need to
chit
adjourn.
chat.
We're done?
Oh, is it time for
Adjourn,
that?
then you can chit-chat.
We through, I think we had enough discussion for one night.
Okay.
A motion is in order for adjournment.
Mr. Chair, I motion we adjourn.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Frederick, supported by Mr. Jones, to adjourn this meeting. Take a roll call vote. Mr. Frederick?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Lloyd?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. This meeting is adjourned. Finally. Are we off?